So, I don't know if you guys know this, but video games can be good.
What? What the fuck?
Yeah, I know. Shocking for someone to say something so absolutely crazy. But video games as a whole can be one hell of an entertaining experience that can satisfy fans while making them want more. And that's exactly what Trails FC was capable of doing for me when I played and reviewed it a few months back. And when I started up the sequel, I was expecting something of similar, if not slightly higher quality. But what I got was so much more than that. I was instead treated to an absolutely incredible experience that I can without a doubt say is nearly unrivaled by 90% of the other games I've played in years. I'm not even exaggerating. Trails in the Sky SC completely surpassed every expectation I had and then some. This game may just be one of my absolute favorite experiences I've had. But instead of just gushing over it, how about I actually explain why? Without further ado, let's get into it. So, if you were someone who watched my FC review video, then you would know that while I loved FC, it had some issues that I couldn't help but point out. Some I believed were actual problems like the mirror balancing, and some were more personal like how the EXP was handled. So when I booted up SP, I was curious if it would quell my complaints or not. And goddamn, they fixed pretty much every problem I had. The biggest fix, of course, to this game was its mirror issue. FC did a real bad job in balancing the amount of SEP you got in battle, and as a result, you were always left with massive surpluses of it that could be constantly exchanged for higher amounts of Mira. This Mira problem also wasn't exactly helped by the fact that whenever a party member who joined you for that chapter would leave at the end of it, they would in turn leave all of their old equipment behind, which in turn could be sold at stores for a high price with no downsides since they would return with better equipment at a later time. Now, however, that won't fly at all, Chief. Not only have the sale prices been severely tweaked to be much less abusable, SC changes this up by instead having most of your party members stay with you the entire game, which now forces you to place much more of a focus on what you spend your Mira on. You can no longer just place focus on Estelle and Joshua. You now have several characters that you have to make sure are equipped with items. Which is honestly great because I now actually had a reason to go on Bracer quests or get into battles for both SEP and experience. Speaking of experience, this game keeps the same EXP loadout as the first, where the higher the level you are, the less experience you earn in fights. And honestly, it's actually starting to grow on me. While I will admit I would prefer a set EXP loadout in comparison, this style is actually much more enjoyable than I first thought. Okay, with those talked about, I think it's time we started talking about the combat. Now, combat for the most part is pretty much unchanged, and that's perfectly fine to me, as the first game's combat was fine the way it was. However, that doesn't mean they didn't add in a few new things. For one, there are 2 new party members added to the game. The first is Father Kevin, a holy man that utilizes range attacks and is a somewhat proficient healer, alongside boasting a super useful S-Craft. And the second is surprisingly Annalise, the younger bracer that you meet in the first game and fight in the final chapter's tournament. She's more a close range fighter as she utilizes a rapier, and wields a pretty strong S-Craft of her own. And while they're a lot of fun to use in battle, their best attribute is without a doubt their character quirks. Kevin's one-sided crush on Estelle is pretty funny to watch, and never once entered the overly annoying territory. And I love that they gave Annalise a giant love of cute things and had her develop a friendship and rivalry with Estelle. I really veered off track, huh? Sorry, I just really like the characters in this game. Anyways, let's get back to talking about the combat. Now for the most part, the basics of combat stay the exact same. Use the attack button, magic cost CP, and character-specific crafts are used by spending CP to activate them. However, a unique addition is now you have the choice of chain arts, where characters can spend a set amount of CP each to partake in a conjoined attack on the enemy, which is another fantastic addition, as one of my complaints about FC was it not having any option for chain attacks despite having such an emphasis on its party members. So I'm really happy to see them add in chain arts as a whole, really cool to see. However, even with those changes, the biggest change was to the orbment system. Now, in FC, the most you did with the orbment system was unlock the slots for more orbments, and well, that's it. It didn't really go beyond that, to be honest. However, that isn't the case for SC, as it changes up in a very unique way, as while you still have to unlock them, Orbment slots now require upgrades to equip stronger versions of an orbment, a change I personally really like, as now you have more reasons to even have the orbment system than just unlocking a slot and equipping the strongest quartz you have at your disposal. It adds another reason to hold on to Step instead of just selling it after you have the slots unlocked. Whew! Well, that's all the combat stuff, added on and improved upon. So how about we get to the single best part of this game, and that's the story. Now, in order to get into this, I'm gonna have to do something I try my best to avoid, and I'm gonna have to talk about spoilers. But I'm gonna do what I can to keep any major plot points from being spoken about, since this is a game that is best experienced as blind as possible. Now, unlike many other game sequels where they continue after something like a time skip or something, Trails SC actually continues almost instantly after the final scene of FC, where Joshua reveals his past to Estelle, then he decides to leave so he can deal with the main villains of this series, Ouroboros. Estelle confesses her feelings to him to try to convince him to stay, and as a result, he drugs her to knock her out so he can leave. And then SC begins from there, and I fucking love it. It's such a unique way of handling a sequel and the concept of just continuing right from what feels like a time where everything is calmed down. It also feels like a reward for players who beat FC and chose to start SC right after. And when the story kicks off, it fucking kicks off. FC is a game that, while good, works better more when you realize it's used to set up the world and major plot points. And SC is the game that gives you the payoff for it all. Every single chapter in this game never for a second feels like it's wasted. Every single moment is used in a way to push the narrative forward. It introduces the villains that will become the main focus of the series, moving forward each of them masterfully, each possessing a unique character design, backstory, and even motivations for their actions that make you interested in just what the actual fuck got them to even join this organization in the first place. I'd say the pinnacle of this game's storytelling appears in chapters 6 onward, but that doesn't mean the chapters 1 through 5 are anything less than an 8 out of 10. They are fucking phenomenal too. And I won't spoil why, so you can all be blown away yourselves. Trust me, it's 10 times better to experience these games as blind and as spoiler-free as possible. Which makes it both amazing to think about and hard to talk about it, considering you don't want to spoil it for everyone. But I can say and at least talk about my favorite aspect of SC's story, and that is Estelle's character development. In FC, Estelle had some moments, but she was for the most part the inexperienced naive rookie, and most of the mature topics and planning were done by Joshua. But now that Joshua is gone, Estelle must now fill in the leader role of the group, and I love seeing her grow into the mature, responsible bracer we all love, while still keeping her comedic interactions with everyone on the team. It's easily some of the best development I've seen in a lot of the recent RPGs I've played. It's super good. And that's everything. I've covered everything I thought was absolutely amazing about this game. There were a few others, but I really can't talk about that without the fear of spoilers like I've mentioned so many times before. Sorry, but again, I gotta reiterate, these games are best when you don't know anything about them. So with our pros placed out onto the table, how about we get into what I believe are the cons of this game? Let's get into this, everybody. Alright, with all the pros I mentioned above it, it may seem a bit shocking that I even have cons for this game, but I do, and I'm not going to hold back my criticisms of it. First and foremost, I am not a fan of the forced party member system. Now, I like that SC lets you have all your characters together, but it is severely hurt by the fact SC also forces you to use certain characters during the storyline whether you want to or not. Oh, what's that? You wanted to build a party of your choice? Nah, fuck that, nerd. You gotta have a Gate and Tita in your party for this chapter, and you only get one choice of your own will. Isn't that just super fun? It's kinda like in Kingdom Hearts 2, where instead of getting to choose who joins you for the journey, they force you to work with this specific character even if they end up being terrible. Ping! Now, you probably ask, well, Crimson, why are the forced party members such a problem if you like the gameplay so much? And why are you being such a little bitch about it? Well, for two reasons. I hate when any game takes away my ability to choose for myself, unless it's under extremely specific reasons. And two, it wouldn't be such a massive issue if they didn't only have one good healer. Out of all of the characters, Chloe is the only one who is a complete natural with magic, but also possesses some of the most helpful S-crafts in the game. Here, healing S-Craft has insane levels of range and can even bring people back from the dead. Why the hell would I give up something that useful considering barely any other character has that helpful of an S-Craft? Maybe I would say Father Kevin, given just how useful his S-Craft is, in that he can protect you from damage once or twice depending on how much CP you have. But I can't, because for some reason, they decided him and Annalise should only be playable for a couple of select chapters. And that is a design choice I just don't get at all. Why introduce 2 new characters, then decide that both of them aren't even playable for 80% of the game? Does that make sense to like anyone at all? Why let several of your other older characters be completely playable, but make it so that all the new characters are playable for barely any time throughout the game? It's so frustrating. Okay, got that out of my system. What's next? Oh yeah, the boss fights. Now, for the bosses in the game, I'm kind of mixed. Some bosses, like Chapter 5 and 3, were a lot of fun, especially the Chapter 5 boss fights. But then there were boss fights that really made my blood boil. A good example of this is in Chapter 4, where you have to fight a pair of bosses, where one can only be hurt with normal attacks, and the other can only be hurt with arts. Honestly, it's a great idea to utilize in a game. It makes you actually strategize instead of just going in and wailing on one of the enemies. That is, until it's ruined by the fact that they fill the screen with enemies that you really have to use magic arts on since normal attacks will constantly miss. Added on to these bosses are them just spamming these really fucking annoying status elements every couple of turns. Then in Chapter 7, you gotta fight them again. And then you gotta fight them again afterwards. Yeah, isn't that fun? Isn't repetitive just fun? Also, well, I should probably bring this one up. In Chapter 7, you fight the Angel of Slaughter, where this happens.
Slaughter you. Die. Boss fight time. What the fuck? She gets an S-Craft on the bat?
Insta-kill time.
What, that's bullshit? What the fuck was that garbage?
Yeah, she pulls out an S-Craft with a 50% chance of a death blow right on the first turn. You can't do anything about it, but simply pray you either survive through sheer luck, or somehow in some way knew about it beforehand and equipped an accessory that prevents death blows. And that's the biggest issue I had with some of these boss fights. They're less like, okay, use what you've learned to your advantage and surpass this obstacle, and more along the lines of, you got your ass kicked, leave this battle, which, by the way, you'd have to go all the way back to the title screen, and equip the one item for this fight only, or else it's just going to be kind of a slog to get through. And that is just not fun to me. I get the concept, you want to have more of a focus on accessories, and part of me does kind of respect that, but you're probably just going to unequip it right afterwards because you don't really need it for the other fights. It doesn't change your stats, it just prevents something. And that's kind of dumb to me. There is a small nitpick I have about Chapter 8 where they take away your healers, but that's pretty easy to get through and you can easily buy a surplus of items, so it's completely ignored. Other than that, I've bitched about it enough. So with all my thoughts out there, I'm now happy to say I'm 100% a Trails fan after this game. It was a fantastic experience that I'm certain I'll remember for years to come. And Trails is easily a series I can now very, very much recommend to anyone who's looking for some fantastic games. It's Trails-tastic. Okay, that physically hurt to say. But I'm super hopeful that Sky Third will meet those expectations as well. My final rating for this game is a very outstanding 9.5 out of 10, the highest review I've given a game so far. And that's the end of the video. If you all liked this, remember to like and subscribe for more RPG content. That's all. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.